Welcome everyone, this is Jyoti Dodia. Welcome to the 97th session of the PowerVUG series. And I'm really pleased to have Nigel Griffiths today, and he's going to cover quite a number of topics on what is new in the Power AIX and Linux world. So without further ado, over to you, Nigel.
Thank you very much, Jyoti. So we're going to look at Power AIX Linux sort of thing. That's my ball game. I work in London, in the UK. I'm a technical staff member in the Advanced Technology Support Group, officially sort of EMEA, but we tend to do more worldwide things too. And you've got my contact detail down here, Nigel, NAG. It's not quite my initials. My parents were that cruel. At uk.ibm.com, and I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. I just tried the LinkedIn earlier today, and you need that final slash on the name. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's really frustrating. And I do a lot of things on YouTube. I have 200 videos out there on Power AIX and Linux. And we've got the AIX Pert blog where I have lots of articles. I think it's about 130 articles with more details of various projects we've run. Okay, so let's get started. Lots to cover in here. Now, I really do like my job, so I'm not an IBM spokesman. So you can't phone up your IBM person and says, Nigel Griffiths said that I can have this or whatever. It's just my personal opinions on this session. And we already know, I think if you've been around a couple of years, that the major releases of AIX, VIOS server, firmware, and hardware updates tend to go out in November, December. So we're right in the middle of here. We got, it says think pickings, actually thin pickings of new stuff coming up. So I've got a lot of reminders of what's happening in this world. And we're also right between the arrival of the Power 9 that came out and finished off coming out last year, and Power 10. So again, there's no major hardware releases. In fact, again, some people asking me, can I, actually fly out and present a day's session on Power 10? And the answer is no. That's not coming out this year. It's too early to talk about Power 10. I mean, we know some things and it looks really exciting, but it's not this year. Just to make sure we're on the same sheet. So these are contents. This is really for looking up things later on where it appears. So Developer Works, rest in peace. It's gone. We announced this in September last year, and I mad panicked and took all my articles and information that I had, about 130 of them. It's now on the support pages, the web pages there as articles. And then they said they were going to stop Developer Works at the end of the year, and it didn't happen because IBM found there was an awful lot of stuff on the Developer Works websites and the community pages. There's forums and information, and we were doing training, and all the details of the sessions were on there and all sorts of things. So it took us quite a while to actually take it down. But I think we've actually done that now. You may be, if you go to some of your old, if it has Developer Works in the actual URL for the website, some of them have been redirected to the new pages, so that's okay. But if it's not one of those pages, then you'll end up with this one. Don't panic. We've probably got the information somewhere. We can try and help you find it. Now, to be honest, some of my pages were quite old. I mean, some of them were like 2009, 2010, and they really did need freshening up with all the new things that have happened since. So it was a very good exercise to get everything up to date. And if it was just really old stuff, then we parked it, and it's not available anymore. For example, I worked on a project called Systems Director, which was not too bad. Everybody used to say it's horrible, but there's some core things it did really well, and I still miss those. But it was withdrawn, and so we just deleted all the web pages for that. Right, that's one thing. Now, this is a nice little picture I thought I'd in here, something for you to look at. And this is, if you read the bottom, this is the open source toolbox for Linux applications. That's why I got pictures of tools, and I wish that was my garage, but there we are. This is one of the things that had to move. So if you were going to the open source toolbox and you got a URL that won't work anymore, that may be actually redirected. It's one of the important ones. I created this ibm.biz AIX toolbox, but I think that is case sensitive. So it's AIX toolbox is where you want to go if you want to try and remember it. And on that web page, there is now, I added up 870 packages. So this is quite a big list of things, popular stuff that's open source, which tends to mean, it's first available on Linux, but we can just recompile that and run that on AIX. And it also gets regular refreshes. We get some complaints that this has been around for years, but it was a bit neglected, where we're actually putting a lot more effort into keeping this up to date. So things are regularly refreshed. People were saying, yes, some of this software is, 10 years out of date. Well, it's not. There's nothing more than 9 months out of date. In fact, all the dates have been refreshed when they moved it to the new website. So everything looks fresh at the moment, but there's nothing in there that's way behind. And we also get comments about if you've installed open source software, some of it from the toolbox, some of it from puzzle.com, some of it from Bull or something, then you get clashes in the RPM messages come out saying, this is not compatible with that, and you can get in sort of a gridlock situation. Well, I'm told that the way to get out of that is, right, first of all, clone your logical partition, have a backup and that sort of thing. Then you delete all the RPMs and you reinstall them all from the toolbox. So then you'll have a clean slate and you should be able to go forward, updating things as you go. Now that's a fairly brave thing to do. So that's one of my projects, a little star next to that. I'm going to give that a go with a website that we run internally. It's been running for 15 years or something, upgraded dozens of times. But I get stuck. I can't put the latest tools into it. But I'll try deleting all the RPMs, make a note of what we have, and then see if we can put them all back on and get things freshened up and working properly. The other thing is there's no support for the software in here. Well, that's not strictly true. There's support and there's support, isn't there? If it's in an open source package, then you can go to the open source owner of the package and get support from the actual developers. Usually they run forums and FAQs and things, so you can get information there. If it's something very specific that it doesn't work on AIX, then you can actually contact the team behind this and offer some support. Now it's done ad hoc, but if you notice on, actually, JT, if you're there, can you see my arrow on the screen there?
Yes, but
oops, it went forwards. Let's go back one.
Do you mean the red arrows, or do you mean your mouse cursor?
My mouse cursor. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit small. There is a way to annotate.
Yeah, don't worry, it's okay. In the middle there of the page, in fairly small writing, there's the open source forum. If you click on that, you get to another community page and hit discussion, and then you go to the forum. That was always there, and they're actually much more proactive these days. So if you you have a genuine bug that maybe it doesn't work at all or doesn't install properly, you can get support for those sorts of things. If you say, I've never used this tool, can you give me a 5-hour guided tour of how it works? The answer will be no. You can go and look that up yourself. But if you want to request updates, like this one is actually particularly old and there's a new vital security update that we should have, then you can tell the people behind here, and they'll are fairly proactive in saying, yes, that's on the list, it should be out in 2 weeks' time or something. And if you've got a particular package that you'd like in the toolbox, it's not there, then you just ask for it. If a few people ask for things, then this is how we decide what packages to actually add. And if they've got 870 packages under their belt, they're pretty good at getting new stuff ported over, recompiled. Any standard issues we can fix pretty quickly. Okay, so that's the toolbox. I went a quick look through all of these things in the list, all the things that I think sounded quite interesting, and then I thought, oh, course, that's a lot. I put these pluses on some of them because there's Python 3s out there, but Python comes with loads and loads of modules. Well, they've got loads and 30 or 40 modules for Python 3 to actually make Python useful. The same goes for Ganga. There's modules in MariaDB and nmon things. So I highlighted the ones that I'm actually sort of using proactively myself. And Jason C is interesting from the C coder point of view. I can import JSON data, and lots of other ones that we haven't got time to go through. The top one up here is Ansible that I've been looking at recently. Now, we've had a couple of sessions internally and externally about Ansible. There's a growing buzz around that, and somebody actually told me that Red Hat bought Ansible, the people behind it, and there's an open source version and there's a Red Hat version. Of course, if it's Red Hat, then you're getting standard Red Hat support and those sorts of things, so that's good. But I was getting very confused about what's going on. So this is my take on it without actually trying it yet. So Ansible is a tool which is going to, on the right-hand side, automated programs to doing your system admin for you. So it's a central server. It has an inventory of endpoints, the servers, virtual machines, or whatever. It uses SSH to get to all of those, so that's nice and secure. It does force you to use SSH to do that. And then it has these little files. They're called YAML, YML files. They have little stanzas in there in what you actually wanted to do. And it's actually to get your particular software or whatever you're dealing with up to a known state, like it's got this particular service pack installed or this particular application has been installed and is running. The nice thing about the way it's done is that you can rerun a tool to get something into this known state. If it finds it's already in that state, well, it does nothing. So if you've got 100 virtual machines in there, you want to add some really cool tool like nmon, then you can use the tool and do that. And then it will say, yeah, out of 100, 95 worked, 5 of them failed, and this is why it failed. Maybe some prerequisite missing or something went wrong or space or something. So you can concentrate on those 5s and fix those problems. And then you can just do the whole thing again on all 100. And the 95 that already have it working just say, yep, we're good. And then it will retry the 5 that failed. So it's quite a nice way of operating. It's not just kicking off a script and that's it. Now these tasks that you can write, the default is it's written in Python 2 and it assumes that the endpoint has Python 2, which is not necessarily the case with AIX. And I noticed that Python 2, that's one of those red flashing beacons go off. It's officially dead at the end of the year, so hopefully they're moving them over to Python 3. You can have raw Unix, Linux AIX commands in there, or it can be a sort of shell script you send out to get things done or things checked, and then actually running commands to do it. Now, on the Red Hat, they have what's called Ansible Engine, which is the command line interface into Ansible. Then they have the Ansible Tower, which is a very fancy graphical user interface for grouping your machines and clicking here and making adjustments to your scripts to do particular things, like which version you want to install, and then kicking them off, and then you can come back later and see what happened and how many worked and how many failed and that sort of thing. For those Red Hat software, there is a support cost. For every endpoint per year. The support cost looked pretty big to me, and they said, no, that's the first 100 endpoints, and if you've got more than that, do talk to Red Hat because they're negotiable prices for bulk purchases. And if you look at Ansible.com, you'll find it's actually a Red Hat website. It's got little red hats all over it because they sort of own it. But a little bit like the Red Hat operating system, which you can purchase and support via Red Hat, they also run it as a open source project that is freely available. Of course, that moves a lot faster with lots of new features being added ad hoc. Makes it more difficult to sort of upgrade things and that sort of stuff. But that's still available, and that's what confused me a little bit. So if you go to the toolbox, you can find Ansible. Hey, so what is that? Well, this is my first question. This is on AIX rather than Linux, where it sort of comes from. So what is that? Well, that is the open source version of what Red Hat call Ansible Engine. There's also an open source version of the Tower that is called Ansible AWX, a sort of a beta project. You think of Fedora type early versions of stuff is tested out there before it goes into the mainline code. And we don't have the AWX on the AIX toolbox. Well, unless a whole bunch of people say we really want that one, and then we may find it. Trouble is that is a moving feast. It's been updated all the time, so it's harder to keep that up to date. So we have Ansible on AIX, and there's lots of tasks specific. I've got a list of them there. I'm not going to go down. Doing lots of common tasks with AIX. It's going to use SSH. So once you sort that out, you don't have to worry about your logins and passwords anymore. And a little bit worrying, it says without deep AIX skills, because you're going to run an Ansible task on these particular endpoints, and it does all the work for you. It's less chance of getting it wrong. That's a really good thing. Whether you want to put this in the hands of totally unskilled people, I would worry about. And these free community written YAML files are in what's called Ansible Galaxy, which is like a repository where everybody can load things up. Now, you do have to worry slightly if you're not an Ansible expert that somebody could put some dodgy code in there, does something dangerous on the machine, accidentally deletes a bunch of files, for example. So in the Red Hat world, they have the Ansible Automation Hub, where you'll subscribe to that as a fee, but then you had safe and tested scripts that you have more confidence that nothing will go wrong with those because Red Hat has actually looked at them. Now, I expect more to be announced about Ansible from IBM very shortly. I asked them, could I pre-announce everything here? And the answer was no, it's coming up in some amount of time, fairly shortly, so expect some movement in this area. Okay. Let's move on. Oh, here's the future. Right. Expect an announcement. Okay. I intend using Ansible, give it a try. I've been doing systems management for years, so this is an interesting topic. Of course, my files will be installing and starting njmon or nmon and rolling it out across all my machines. That actually saved me time. So that's a double win if I get all that working. And I'll be trying the AIX free version as a starting point. Of course, if you get very seriously into this, then you probably want support, and so you pay for the Red Hat Engine and Red Hat Tower. Okay, so are you keeping yourself informed in these darkened days of people not going to the office so much? Less opportunities to learn from your colleagues and things. So there's Twitter and LinkedIn. I do both, and I put the same message out on both. Of course, on Twitter, you've got a reduced number of words, so that keeps the commentary down. But I always put little pictures of what's going on as well out there. So if you're not keeping up to date with these things, then you are getting behind. And so, a lot of things I'm covering here have gone out as they were ready during the past 6 months. I find that the Twitter people just like listening, but the LinkedIn people like having conversations and commenting on things, or if they get stuck or they've got a question that they ask it on LinkedIn rather than Twitter. So I do encourage people to get engaged. I said before we started, my LinkedIn name is on the front sheet, but I found out I needed the backslash at the end, otherwise it said, who the hell is that? So just make sure you put the backslash in the end. Okay, encouraging people to stay up to date. Right, virtual I/O server coming up next. Now, if you go to Fix Central, you always get this little diagram that says, where are you with the releases? There's a sort of reminder to keep up to date. And so there's a big arrow there of the AIX 6.1 based VIOS server 2.2, and you'll see it's because to end of service this year. So that's third quarter. And so at that point, you are not supported unless you pay for the optional extended support. And that costs quite some money. And so on LinkedIn and Twitter, I put out a call for action. Please don't do the upgrade. Pay for the extra extended virtual I/O server support because that helps my pension. And don't upgrade to the VIOS server 3.1. That will be faster. It's based on AIX 7.2. So that's an 8-year technology jump of a faster copy of AIX inside the virtual I/O server. Because if you do that, it's going to use less CPUs, and you've got more CPUs to run your applications. And so I'm encouraging people not to do that. Just give IBM extra money. If you really need to do it, then you can read this. My expert blog was moved in here for about upgrading to the VIOS server 3.1. Now, just in case you don't understand my sense of humor, this was a joke. Some people just didn't get that. So I really do want you to upgrade to 3.1 and the very latest version of 3.1. There's a whole lot of best practice stuff in there. It's not a big deal. And if you like, you run the dual VIOS servers so that you can upgrade the VIOS server. And you can run mixed 2.2 and 3.1 at the same time. Not recommended for a long period of time, but if you want to do one VIOS server one day and the next day, that's fine. That will all work fine. And one point that I had to change the best practice, it had the highest level of 2.2 recommended and the highest level of 3.1 recommended, and jump between those two. And but they became out of date with newer versions. So I always go to the latest version of 2.2 and then make the jump, because you'll have some extra bug fixes that some things have caught people out. Don't forget your backups. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's move on to AIX. There's a nice big logo, isn't there? Okay, next one is AME. While moving things over and looking at my videos, I noticed there's one here on AME. That's a good, solid piece of technology that came out a while ago. There's an 18-minute video on that, so you can find out as much as me. I've got this little picture in here. Briefly, I want to ask you now, when did this come out? Which year? It's one of those up there. And which power version were we on at the time? So we're going to stop for 30 seconds. I'm going to have a slurp of a drink. And you can put that into the chat, please, and we'll see how many people get that right. That's just feedback. I don't actually mind what you're saying here, but this is a practice run for some questions I want to ask a bit later on.
While people are putting their answers in, and they are.
Yep, I've seen some flashing up here.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that if you have any other questions or comments, please enter them into the chat and we'll monitor for those as well. And that the session is being recorded, and the replay and the slide deck will be available hopefully later on today, and I'll notify you via email if you're on the PowerVog subscribers list. If you're not, just send me an email. I'll put some info in the chat window.
Okay, thanks, JD. We've got quite a few people. There, somebody wants a link to the AME page. There we are, very quickly, and we'll move on. Maybe do a screen grab. We'll make sure it's available.
I can post
Excellent.
it into the chat window.
You got it? Oh, you can get it out of the PDF.
I can, yes.
Okay, let's move on then. So the answer is 2009 Power 6. Now, some people were answering Power 7, and you're probably right, because that came out like 6 months later. So you may have first come across it on Power 7. So we'll let that go. So very briefly, what we're doing is we're expanding the memory by taking some memory pages and compressing other memory pages and put it into the compressed memory pages. So if you like, you end up with more pages of information in the memory you have, but some is compressed. Now, if a program actually wants one of the pages that is compressed, then it is uncompressed and put into a free page. You will get a page fault. We'll uncompress it, put it into a fresh page, and then we'll restart the program so that you'll find that the memory page is there. And so we're paging in and out of memory, which is extremely fast, of course, 1,000 times faster than paging it out to disk, for example. But you end up with sort of a larger effective memory, and this actually makes quite a big, important improvement in memory. Now, my first thoughts were we would get maybe 1.2 or 1.5 times memory, but when we actually talk to customers, they go much bigger numbers. And this is highlighting the fact that in memory, a lot of applications probably have memory full of zeros. If you have a page full of zeros, that compresses to 8 bytes, very high compression ratios. So that makes the numbers that they're running quite a bit higher. And you can work out what sort of compression ratio you should be, expansion factor rather, by using this AME pat command. You can try this without purchasing AME. It is something you have to buy, and it's done on a per server basis. Okay, so that's about it. So why am I going on about it now? Well, you have to purchase it, but many customers had blanket buy it anyway sort of policies, and they find it useful and they use it all day long, and they always have done. And they say, why isn't everybody else using this? It's really good. Since the original AME was released, it was based on 4K memory pages. But if you had a database that was using 64K memory pages, you had to compress 16 pages to get the 64K page compressed. And if you touched that page, then it had to do 16 uncompressions to get you back that page so it could hand it back to you. So there's a little time lag for the bigger pages. But since then, we've had Power 8 come out, which had some hardware support for the compression. And that meant that we can now do the 64K memory page uncompresses a lot faster, so that lag is less, and it is now officially supported with 64K memory pages. With Power 9, we actually have an accelerator built into the cores, which does the compression and uncompression for us much faster. So although there was a little bit of CPU overhead involved with running this, and then you get more memory, the amount of CPU overhead has gone down drastically. It's practically free memory, and I'm going to cover that in this page. I'm not sure if this is going to make an awful lot of sense. So for what I can find out, the price hasn't changed from 11 years ago, which is like remarkable from IBM. Maybe I shouldn't tell marketing people this, but it means that in 2009, if you take a Power 6 server with 32 cores, a sort of middle-sized machine, it could go up to 3/4 of a terabyte of memory. In these days, if you take the similar machine, an E950, 36 cores, it could have 48, but you have one of the cores not there, then you get 12 terabytes of memory. That's an enormous jump in memory. And of course, if we're doubling the amount of memory in here, instead of giving you a total of 1.5 terabytes, you're now getting 12 terabytes more memory, effective memory in the computer. That's a lot of memory, and that is worth a lot of money. The other way of looking at it is this is a 94% price reduction over 12 years from IBM. And of course, IBM price reductions are famous. They're in the Hackers Dictionary if you want to go looking up. It usually means the price went up. But anyway, moving on. Okay, let's look at something else for AIX, the marketing budget. Anybody got an idea how much the yearly budget is for marketing AIX? So again, answers in the chat if you can do that. So we're not going to wait too long on this one. Trying to work out what slide I'm on. Okay, 27. Okay, so that's not enough. Yeah, that definitely that. No, Steve, well done. Yeah. So the answer is it's just a new currency. This is called the euro dollar pound. Oddly, the euros, the dollars, and the pounds are all sort of heading towards each other. So maybe we'll have a universal currency at some point. But the answer is 0, as far as I can tell. Now, the marketing people will tell you, oh, no, we spent lots and lots of money. And I've looked at some of their yearly reports of what they've done for AIX. And then I find a whole lot of the stuff that they're claiming is what I've done, which means they paid nothing. They're not paying me anything. So this has always been a little problem. And I think I was looking around in 2017, what could we do to raise the profile for AIX? Just remind people we have lots and lots of really good features. Now, I'm an IBMer, I like my job. Red Hat is obviously a very good Linux, but it's not anywhere like as good as AIX. And here's 32 reasons why. And we had lots of votes. And then on the next slide, I got these are the top winners in here, the top 8. 8, and I highlighted the 3 of them are actually hardware features. I mean, that applies to IBM I and Linux if you're running on power boxes anyway. But AIX does fully exploit all those hardware features, and so it's a benefit to AIX in particular. So we don't have conferences anymore, and who knows whether that's going to change in the future. I'm not going to recommend running sessions at technical universities to go through these again. So I was thinking, how do I raise the profile of AIX in 2020? So how to explain all these brilliant features of AIX to new people? There's always new people working on AIX coming out of university, starting their job, or they've now got an AIX computer arriving, and they have to take that up as well as their other operating systems. And to a certain extent, reminding the old guys, there's a lot in here that's very easy to take for granted and not really appreciate, underplay how fantastic AIX actually is. So I invented a project called AIX in Focus, and I thought this was like going back to some old conferences that we ran many years ago. And I was actually sitting here at my desk at home, and I thought I was wearing an AIX in Focus t-shirt. And it looked down and it said Unix in Focus. I didn't remember that. Montpellier in the south of France. And I actually helped design the logo. I'm not sure if it later became AIX in Focus, but in 2004, it was definitely Unix in Focus. I think it might have been changed to AIX in Focus when we wanted to highlight the fact we're not talking about Solaris or HP AIX. We're talking about the real, proper Unix. Now, we did suffer a little problem at IBM because we had separate AIX groups and OS 400 groups, and I have to be careful because Jyoti was in the OS 400 group, and they were marketed as separate things. There were different sorts of computer. The hardware was different, but we actually then moved all of us to the Power hardware and different operating systems on that. That made a lot of sense in combining the development people developing new chips and new computers and running two different operating systems. But at that point, all the marketing then concentrated on Power because it covers both operating systems, and the marketing budget for AIX and OS 400, or IBM I as it's now known, sort of vaporized. And I actually think the IBM I guys do a lot better at marketing or reminding people how good it is than the AIX people. So we have AIX in Focus. So then if you think, how do people learn stuff this year? And we're all sitting at home and we want to learn something new while we're sitting here. And I've taught myself the Go language, or I'm just getting started with that. I've tried GitHub. Ghastly, but it works. Everybody wants to do that. I think GitHub is the new data grave, or the new code grave, isn't it? I've seen so many rubbish projects in GitHub. You know, they've uploaded a bunch of software 10 years ago and never touched it ever again. And Prometheus I'm playing with is another open source project. And how do I learn Go, GitHub, Prometheus? Well, I can't take a course at the moment and probably wouldn't be able to get the funding to take a course anyway. So where do you go to get this? You go to YouTube and you look up your subject. You'll find 500 YouTube videos. You'll look at the most popular. You'll try a couple of them, and there'll be the presenter isn't any good, or you have no idea what he's talking about. And then you'll find some really good ones. You'll lock onto that, and you'll watch the videos from these people. So I wanted to do this for AIX. So if you want to find all my YouTube, I have a channel, youtube.com user Nigel AR Griffiths, about 200 in there. I think about 194 or 5 or something like that in there. And I looked at all the AIX ones. So there's 18 ones for AIX already, but I did notice 6 core topics missing because I was adding YouTube videos when a new feature came out on AIX, but the original core ones, I just assumed everybody knew. So I've gone and backfilled those. On the left-hand side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new ones that I've done recently in the past 5 or 6 weeks. There's one blue one there, the Flash Cache Accelerator. I have all the slides ready. Hopefully I'll get that done by the end of the week. And then these are all the other ones in here. I put the dates on them. Some of them are old, but I've checked they're all pretty good content. Okay, the slides may not be quite so whiz-bang as a new video that I make. And if you see pictures of me, further back you go, the more and more hair I've got. But the content is all pretty good. If you find one that you think is actually terrible, let me know, and I'll think about remaking them. But my question for you then is there a subject that's not in here for AIX and you think we should have one? So do let me know. You can put that in the chat, or you can email me. Now, if you look through all the other ones I have, I've got some subjects in here, like the dynamic LPAR one and simplified remote restart. Well, that applies to AIX. There's loads on performance and nmon in there, so that's for AIX most of the time. We've got shared storage pools and workload partitions. That workload partitions are a feature of AIX, so they're already covered. But I have noticed a couple of gaps in here looking at those 32 top things in AIX. I've already covered it briefly, the open source toolbox. I should try my experiment of deleting all my RPMs and reinstalling them and make a video on that. There's the O commands. These are the schedule, VMO, NO commands. And they all have a similar style of having lots of defaults and they have some options you're not meant to use unless AIX supporters told you to do them. So I could make a video on those too. Some of them are a bit hard to make videos on. Scalability, hardening, first failure data capture, as Gareth said, that's a major feature for the AIX support team. The fact that if something ghastly goes wrong, we collect an awful lot of information in those dumps and things. It goes back to the support guys and they can work out exactly what's happening from that first failure, hopefully. So we can actually put you right and get you going nice and quickly. Enterprise pools, I've been talking a lot about these days, but you need at least 3 E980s. And I've asked my manager to give me 3 E980s, and he just hasn't got $2 million to spend. So I'm not sure how I can make a video on that, but your ideas welcome. Put those in the chat or email me if they come up later on. And oh, I've just got done across the ones that are already there. So don't ask for those ones. Ask for something new. I should have changed the title of this. We have the AIX Rebel Alliance. These are the people that try and put things right for AIX under the covers with no budgets. We had a document called AIX Strength to Strength. I used to print this out and take it when I was in services and have a, which version of AIX did this feature arrive in and when was it improved with these features? And that was written by Jay Kremke, who left IBM. He actually works at SUSE now. So he was known as Mr. AIX. There we go. In 2006, it went missing after Jay had left for a year, and I complained, and they gave me the master copy, and I updated it in 2017, and then we find it went missing again when I looked at it this time. Now, what I'm trying to think of, is this important? Do you still want the AIX strength to strength with a, technology level by technology level, what came out, what were the new features? Maybe we just don't need that anymore. If you look on Wikipedia, there's good content there about the AIX versions, but it's only the major versions and very big features that came out when we first went into SMP, for example. Maybe you just don't want it. Maybe the document actually was very hard to update because the font was getting smaller and smaller to try and squeeze things onto fewer pages. Maybe I should just put the whole lot into a blog and then we could update it more easily as we go forward. So again, somebody's voting for some things in here. Good feedback. I have no idea what to do, right? I'm sort of leaning towards a blog, but you let me know what you like. Okay, we're changing the subject. I just like the picture in here and I put a penguin on it, so you probably know what's coming up. Okay, it comes off after 2 nice slides because I reorganized something. Okay, Redbooks for all our hardware. You can see the power orientated Redbooks in here, hardware orientated. These have all been updated in this year. Some of them may be the small corrections. And I'm just noting here the LT922 isn't available in all countries, so be careful with that one. Okay, so go and get the fresh copies. I've got the links in there. When you download the PDF, you should be able to click on those and get them down. There's a new one out, been updated recently, which is about AIX. Hooray! Enhancements to modernization. There's about 100 pages that actually go through the basics, all those classic subjects that I created YouTube videos for. And then it covers some of the new topics. nmon got an upgrade, so that's in there, so we don't get complaints that the nmon megahertz is the worst possible number you can think of for this particular machine. It now displays the current megahertz. And Xive, that'll come up again in a minute, so got some content in there on that. Here's the Linux one. So I've got a little review now of Linux on Power. The Linux team, the Linus Torvalds and all that has just produced a new version of the Linux kernel. I was reading up about the new features. To be honest, they're quite small. A new device driver for something we don't have on Power. When new releases of like Ubuntu come out, they wow, look at this. The logo is a different color, and you're thinking, well, that's not like a really big thing out there. But we're looking at Red Hat in here. Of course, we support Red Hat as we're so pleased with the operating system. We bought the company, and we can buy that. You can purchase that with your server and ongoing support from IBM, or if you're already a Red Hat regular on other hardware, maybe you want to support contract directly with Red Hat. Whoever you buy it from, you actually end up talking to the same people. When you get into a detailed problem, the kernel teams talk to each other in the hardware chaps. There's RHEL 7, 8. There's a RHEL for SAP, and there's a Red Hat for OpenShift containers that you can purchase from IBM. For best support, of course, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7's a bit old now. If you actually work out when it came out, that's where the kernel was solidified. If you want all the newer features in your kernel, then you have to upgrade to Red Hat 8.1. A bit of a warning in here, there's a RHEL 7.6 alt, and I think the alt was for like alternative or something. It was always a temporary stopgap when we first came out with the AC922, because we wanted the Red Hat 7 to support a new hardware, the Power 9, so we had to organize that with Red Hat, and we wanted the GPU support. There's a note in there that you're not meant to be using KVM. Well, it's not supported if you do use the KVM on that version of Red Hat. And it comes with the libraries for the NVLink to the very fast GPUs in the AC92. And there's specific libraries for compute with the high performance computing, again, AI libraries, all came as sort of a package. Well, you're not meant to upgrade this alternative version to 7.7 and 7.8 to get the newer features. That is not actually supported. I got email from somebody who did that, and it all went horribly wrong. And they said, what can I do now to get back? And I said, well, you go back to your backup. And they said, oh yes, I wish we'd had a backup. So they were doing a fresh install of 7.6 to get out of that. So at the end of the year, and it's not for IBM to announce this, but Red Hat has said this, then this Red Hat 7.6 alt support stops. So it's because it's a temporary stopgap, they can just withdraw the support at that point at the end of the year. They've probably got a date out there already. So if you're running that version, you have to take the upgrade to RHEL 8.1 that fully supports everything, but do check your specific libraries are available and you have them before you do that upgrade. That may come to a shock to people running AC92s or IC92s, but Red Hat 8.1 is the way to go, and if it's not available yet, then it should be soon. Okay, SUSE. I like SUSE. I like it for all the wrong reasons. They have the special tool that looks like Smitty. So we got from IBM, you can buy SLES 12 and 15, and you might ask, what happened to 13 and 14? Well, apparently around the world, the numbers 13 and 14 are unlucky. So they skip straight to 15. There's nothing else going on. And here you can buy that with our hardware and from IBM, or you can buy it from SUSE themselves. Of course, with IBM on Power, the SAP and SAP HANA have significant performance benefits over the x86. That should have been AMD64, actually, I should put there. And we now have the persistent memory features. There's a little link to getting more information on that later as well. But SUSE isn't supported on the AC92 or the RC922. SUSE says it should run fine, but it's those libraries that you may not have, or the connections for the NVLink. NVIDIA may not support their device drivers on SUSE, for example. So that's why it's like that. Okay, now Ubuntu. You can purchase the Ubuntu support with the Power 9 machines, but it seems to be old versions, which is odd. With IBM buying Red Hat, we've not so interested in Ubuntu. That's not sort of an announcement. That's my feelings on the subject. So you don't really want to buy an S924, for example, and run Ubuntu 16. I mean, you want to run 18 at a minimum, and 20 has been out a couple of months, 2004. On those other machines in the middle there, we don't even offer a support contract for that. But if you purchase support from IBM, then for as long as your contract duration, then you will get the support. But after that, not so much, or you can't assume we'll continue that. Now, IBM offered the Ubuntu 20 support, but customers, clients didn't want it from IBM. And it's not surprising for a basically free operating system. I was at one conference where the Ubuntu people said, it's free, download it 100 times a day, run it on anything you want, it's free, just do it, just go on with it, don't ask us. But if you do want support, they can offer a support contract. So maybe you should contact Canonical to ask them about it. If you go to the link in here, it has the different support contracts for how quickly they're going to respond to your support requests. There's no mention of a hardware platform here, so I presume it's on all hardware platforms, and you can download Ubuntu 20 for Power from there. So I think that's going to be supported, but you'll have to ask Canonical. I'm an IBMer. I haven't done the homework there. Now, I did try running Ubuntu 20 on Power 9. It's just the sort of thing I do on a weekend. Just I wonder what happens if I do that. And I couldn't get it to install. It starts up all right and then goes wrong. Now, there might be a problem in there. If you when you download the image, it's got live in the title of the file. And I'm thinking, what does that live mean? So I'm thinking maybe this is meant to be supporting the open power machines. There's like a Raptor, for example, there's a general purpose machine. Maybe that's what this is for. The live usually means with Ubuntu, you run it off your USB memory key or a CD drive or something, and then you can type in a command and it'll actually do the install to the disk. And then you boot off the disk from then on. But I could install Ubuntu 18 and then upgrade to 20, but of course there's no support for that from IBM. And a little hint in there, I think you might have more luck if you run it on a Power 8 machine or a Power 9 machine in Power 8 mode. I'm not sure if it fully understands the Power 9 details. But again, that's just a feeling, just a little hint that may actually help you get it working. I actually like Ubuntu because it's all free and it seems to upgrade itself very quickly and painlessly compared to the other ones, shall we say. Okay, so AIX we're going back to now. We've known Petra Buehler for quite a while. She's now Mrs. AIX, or Miss AIX Sales. She's changed job, and the new AIX offering manager is Maria Ward. She's actually giving some presentations in a couple of 2 weeks' time. So watch out for that. This is the release map you get that I got from Petra. I've added at the top right that year 3000 there. So I'm expecting it to go on for quite a long time. This is because I get quite a few people saying, oh, the chart stops at 2028. What happens then? You've cancelled AIX? It's going to stop working? What? No. It's just as far as the chart could reach on the page and still look nice. So I've put 3000 up there for you. What I'm trying to highlight in here is we're retiring older versions of AIX 6 in particular, and even AIX 7.1. And I've spelt out on this chart exactly what I mean. End of marketing, you can't purchase it, and you can't get hold of install media. End of support means end of regular support, and you have to then buy extended support available at a higher price. And if it's end of life, don't even ask for support. Although if it's a known problem, they may respond, but they're not going to invest any time producing fixes for you or anything like that. So rather than looking at the chart and you having to work everything out, we're being fairly generous again because we have a lot of customers that don't like upgrading. Somebody looking at the year 10,000 problem. Yeah, let's hope we will last that long. So 5.3, no, that's gone. Although we did get some Power 10 hardware people saying, would AIX 5.3 support be good? And everybody in the room said, no, we got rid of it. It's so old. It's like, who's going to install Windows 95 these days? Right, in AIX 6.1, standard support is already finished 3 years ago. Right, so we're into the extended support. That ends April this year. It's gone. It's gone out the door. But then we generously said, okay, we'll extend extended support on the latest pieces of hardware, the Power 7 Plus and Power 8 have been extended. And you'll see that there's a 12-year overlap between AIX 6 and 7.1. You've had enough time to move on. If you're on Power 7, you've really got other problems to deal with. I think I'm on the next slide. So there we go. And everything that we do in the past 4 years for new features of AIX 7.2 only. We've stopped developing and backporting anything to AIX 7.1 a number of years ago. So let's be very proactive. This is what you should and shouldn't be doing. 5.3 gone. 6.1 moving. You should be off it by now, but if not, move off soon. For example, AIX 6.1 doesn't understand SMT8. And SMT8 is very important on a Power 9 computer to giving you extra performance. So if you're on 6.1, you're not going to get the speed up on Power 9 that you might expect. On AIX 7.1, you should be at TL5. That's the latest one, and we haven't produced anything since. And the latest service pack is 6. You should be at that. Service pack should be very quick to get installed. They're bug fixes. There are no functional changes in there. Then for AIX 7.2, if you're on TL2, well, you got till October, and you should be on TL3 and 4. 4 came out in December 2019. And there's the service packs, the latest ones you should be at too. So it's very easy to find out if you're on what I think is a good level of operating system. Everything else, you're taking risks. Now, I recently reworked this chart. It came from Petra, and I deleted Power 4 and 5 off the top. That's gone, right? The Power 6 and 7 hardware is not supported anymore. It may be on a can-do basis or something. So you have to be in 7 plus. This is the newer range of servers that came out slightly later, and they had higher gigahertz ratings. And then we see all these X's here not supported, and the dates when they become not supported for these 3 in here. If you try running AIX 7.2 on AIX 6, it's quite good fun because it stops really quickly. It says, no, I'm not running on this old box, and you end up in the firmware. And if you're running older versions of AIX, it doesn't understand the newer processors. So if you're on Power 9, it only understands Power 7 modes. So when we go to Power 10, that's it. AIX 6 has gone forever. Okay, moving on again. All right, now I did a webinar like this. Oh dear, and I'm going to run out over time, I can see. I've got plenty of slides to go. Right, so in December I gave one on the other virtual user group, the Power Systems virtual group. You're actually on the Power virtual user group at the moment. Whole bunch of things on Xive and persistent memory were covered in that, some advanced topics as well. And on the Power Systems VUG, there's the AIX roadmap coming up on June the 25th. So let's move to the best topic in the world, nmon, right, or the new version of nmon, which is called njmon. It's producing JSON data. Then we can benefit from time series databases like InfluxDB and Grafana as a graphing engine. So this is what I've been used for the past couple of years. It's just an overview of it. If you want to catch up to where we are with njmon, then there are 10 videos out there, 2 hours, 20 minutes. We've had 11,000 views. This is last week when I went to go and had a look. So, you know, we're getting traction and going and getting things done. I've jokingly said, if you want a badge, just watch these videos and you now qualify for badge. You can download it and print it yourself or whatever you want to do. It's unofficial. Okay. This is just a way of me showing you some of the marvelous graphs we get out of Grafana. Fantastic piece of engineering in there. They actually introduce new sorts of graphs, and you can create a template that you can share across people. I've put a whole bunch of templates up on the Grafana website. So this is the 10-minute overview slides. Okay, this is what came out in December, so I'm not going to cover that. I covered that in the previous VUG in December. There's a couple of big things that have come out since. We now have this thing called njmon-D, so all the njmons send the data to the central machine running this daemon process. It gathers the JSON data and does the injection into InfluxDB for us. We can also save the JSON files if you really want the JSON files. We then introduced another one called nimon. Now this I means that it's not producing JSON data, which is what the J is for, is this actually goes straight using line protocol straight into InfluxDB. So this is actually locked into InfluxDB and none of the other time series databases. If you look around the world, the InfluxDB, that's one I like and been working with a lot. Splunk is quite popular. It's not open source, but they have their own Python client, and we can take the JSON files from njmon and put them to Splunk. Tested that works. If you've got the JSON files again, and if you like Elastic, they're also called Elasticsearch and ELK. They have a program called Beats that can monitor a JSON file for extra stuff going into the end of the file and sending that into Elastic. And you can connect Grafana to Elastic. Then we've got the nmon. I've already talked about that. That's going straight there, but there's no JSON involved. So if you want to capture the JSON, then you can't do that with that. But it saves you don't have the complexity of running the central daemon in here that some users are finding too complicated. And the one we've been missing for a long time is Prometheus. Now this is becoming important because it's in OpenShift and Kubernetes. There, but you decided to use the Prometheus time series database. Now, compared to the other ones, it's a little bit peculiar for two reasons. One is they think that 15 days worth of data is all you need. Now, you can change that if you like, but it's for short-term stats. And it's for, particularly if you've got containers, you've got lots of temporary containers coming and going, hundreds of them an hour. Prometheus can cope with that. The trouble is Prometheus, the central daemon, goes out to the endpoint and asks for the data, sort of polls the data, and the endpoint agent sends you back the data. So it's centrally controlled, but everybody else has the agent out here, and it pushes the data when it's ready to the central site. So we have nimon doing pushes, and Prometheus wants to do pull, and they don't meet in the middle. You can't pull and then demand something that will happen in a minute's time. But oddly enough, the Influx data people that create InfluxDB have a program called Telegraph, and that has all sorts of inputs and output plug-in ports that you add to your Telegraph. Just add them into the little configuration file, and now you can do it. And so Telegraph can sit there pretending to be InfluxDB, and then nimon sends it the data, and it's okay, I got the data. And it just sits on it. And then Prometheus comes around and says, okay, give me the data you got. So it gives you the last thing that it got from nimon and sends it through to Prometheus. So this is really exciting. This has been working for about a week, and I've documented all that. So we can actually do Prometheus now. So here's the highlights for June. So nimon, making life simpler if you just want InfluxDB. We can do Prometheus now. We also have internal data collection. So you can add a little small program into njmon or nimon to collect specific stats. I have a big njmon user in a German bank, not Deutsche Bank, another big bank out there, and this is what they wanted. They want some really peculiar things. I said nobody generically wants that, but they wanted it, so we have a way of actually doing that, and that's documented. And I've added rperfs, which are quite nice. And some people didn't like the fact that njmon and nimon have lots and lots of parameters, including some passwords on the command line. And so we now have a little config file that you can put them in so they don't appear in the PS output, for example. So that's it. I got everything we've done. And I think I'm on the right side of 11 o'clock here in the UK. So we're over to questions and back to JT. It's just a reminder of the topics we've got in here.
Great. Thank you so much, Nigel. There have been a few questions that I think Gareth has answered most of those, and there's been quite a lot of feedback on the questions that you asked. So thanks to all the participants. If you do have questions, please post them into the chat window, and we'll take them now. We'll stay on for a couple of minutes. And whilst you're doing that, let me just, and thank you to Gareth as well for handling those questions.
No problem. It's been a very active chat session, so it's good that Nigel continues to stimulate a lot of interest.
Indeed. We've had, I think, more than 160, 170 people that I could see joining, so that's great. Let me just tell you a little bit about the next session. I don't have a firm title for this yet, but it will be a topic related to OpenShift 4.3 on power systems, and it will be Stu Cunliffe back to present on that. If you've heard Stu before, you'll know that he breaks things down to very good sort of understandable pieces, and also does a lot of demos, so you can be sure to kind of see it in action. And
Top Gun hands-on guy, so I enjoy his sessions immensely.
Indeed, and that's on the 15th of July at 2 p.m. UK time, a 90-minute session at 2 p.m. BST UK time. Okay, I don't see any further questions.
Well, Gareth said that there's somebody asking about nmon movie. Yes, of course there is an nmon movie. There's not one for using it with Prometheus yet because I haven't had the time to do it. But that's going to be the 11th one. The other thing that we were going to ask was that I would like to speak every month on njmon, but Jyoti's not that keen. There are other topics. Well, that's what I think you're saying. What you're thinking. So maybe there's an idea that we could have an nmon, njmon, and imon session on a more regular basis. I don't know if people think that's a good idea. Again, pop it in the chat or send me an email, and maybe we'll just do that. Maybe we'll just give it a go and see how many people we get. When we just me, Gareth, and one guy that we already know is down the corridor, we can give it up. But we may just give it a try anyway.
I think that's a really good idea. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording for now, but we can stay on for a minute or two. Thank you all.